Welcome to Conversations with Kendall. I'm Kendall Lutz, real estate agent here at Preferred Shore. We are filming downtown here at our Preferred Shore studio, beautiful Sarasota, and a beautiful day. And I have a wonderful guest here with me today, Michael Calamaras. He's the owner of a leading boutique financial planning firm at Northwestern Mutual. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. And let's talk about, we met years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, at Tatum Ridge. I was walking out, or you were walking out with our kindergarten kids, and I was drawn to talk to you as probably the two best looking guys there, and best dressed anyway. And we had pants on. Most of them show up in shorts, but we were, and I think I've talked to you a little bit about your financial planning after that. But I think it shows if you dress well and you present yourself well, that you're going to get business. You're going to get people talking to you. So it was great to meet you that day. I usually talk about where my guests started from and where were they born and raised and so on. But I think with you, I'm going to flip the script here a little bit. Let's talk about 2025. Let's go right to the end of this, because this is an interesting time in our lives, I think. And I'd like to know, are the kids' gloves off now? Is the impact of Donald Trump, what's that going to do to the markets, to financial planning, or does it change anything?
It's interesting when we talk about economic shifts or the market. Everyone wants to feel like there's, I think, something unique, and of course there's always something that can be done in the short term. But when we talk about planning, it's about the big picture. People staying the course, having a goal, just like anything else, right? If you were to work out, a short-term burst in the gym or eating right for a week right before Thanksgiving isn't going to help your long-term health, right? It's about healthy habits, and it's about doing something on a consistent basis over a long period of time. It's the same thing with the market, right? It's time in the market, not timing. And planning, your goals for retirement, for putting your kids through school, to have financial independence. Those aren't, just quick, in a day goals. It's going to take time. And so all these sort of microcosms of what's going on around us don't really affect the big picture if we stay the course. Now, that's partially my job to help people understand that, just like it's a coach's job in the gym to help keep you focused when you can get distracted by other things, right? And so that's really our role, is to help people understand what are the big picture things, because it's not always clearly defined. People want things they don't realize until they have a conversation about it, and usually they're not spending the time to back off the day-to-day. But you have kids, right? So we're constantly doing something. You have a business, family, there's a lot going on in the world. And so it often isn't easy to just take a step back and look at the big picture. And that's really my role, is to help, let's make sure that happens. And so that we're aligning towards that goal. So, there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs in everything in life. And it's our job to just maintain a consistent path forward and understand that we're making progress, really. And
so no matter what party's in office, no matter what's going on globally, or maybe even within the States itself, your goal, your thought process, and what you're trying to instill on your investors is long-term. What if you bought Disney stock 30 years ago, 50 years ago, stay the course. It's going to be worth something someday, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, everyone's situation is unique. There are nuances in individual situations, right? So any advice we give will have that nuance to what that person's goals are, right? What their specific needs are, and their situation that surrounds their family and their life. But in general, it's a big picture game, right? And people want to be drawn towards the short term because it's easy to get wrapped up in the hype, right? And it feels good sometimes, like, oh, well, this could make a big difference for us, right? It's like, I could win the Powerball tomorrow, right?
Right.
It's like anything else. And then also with the negative side, it's easy. People get sucked in the negative way easier than the positive. Just like people only leave negative reviews on restaurants, they really don't leave many good reviews. It's the same thing with the negative, media hype there too. It's just easier to get drawn in and monger on fear. So, they want to do that, and it's our job to sort of, okay, let's reset. Let's reset. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's, recommendation for their life will be the exact same, but it does mean that we have to have a bigger, broader view on things and back out.
Wow.
You know?
So, okay. So how about, I just saw some, I think it was a TikTok or something, but they were talking about generational wealth coming to Florida. And increase, and the folks coming down here have an average, salary of 160 or 170 or more, and they're selling their homes in New York, Chicago, and so on, moving down to Florida. And that was partly because of COVID. So there was a kind of an impact that was made during COVID, and driving home prices up because those folks can afford $1 million home, and where some of the locals, which are now moving out, because their incomes are averaging, 50, 60,000, 70,000, and they can't afford the $1 million home. So kind of the economy here in Sarasota specifically, Florida as a whole, but Sarasota is a big part of that, is changing, partially because of COVID. So there wasn't a huge impact 3-4 years ago, but we don't see, you're saying really that same impact. And I'm talking about the market for housing, but also, I guess, stock market and so on. But local market here, you don't think 2025, with a change in direction of the country, is going to affect Sarasota much at all?
I mean, it's hard to tell, right? It's really hard to make those predictions. But, what we have seen is that the influx of people moving here, I think a lot of those people would have moved here anyway at some point in time, just over a little bit longer time as opposed to 1 year. Maybe less infrastructure strain all at once. Right. But there is a large transference of wealth and a lot more retirees, right? We have the boomer generation, right? And the amount of people in that generation alone, is a lot larger than the next few generations. So, we are going to see a few things happen there, right? A lot of people are retiring and they're going to be moving to their retirement home. And then we're going to see a lot of passing of those people, legacy transference, inheritance, the heirs of those individuals, right? So whether that's they are coming down and moving or they're passing away and there's assets flowing into, their heirs, there will be a lot of transference over the next few years. I think the next decade for sure will be a significant decade for that. And a lot of planning should go into that, right? Everyone's situation is different, but if they want to move here, want to buy a house, like how will that affect, your goals? How should you prepare yourself to purchase a property or, to pass your legacy? But it could, I think our state in general has always had a significant influx of retirees, right? COVID, I think the COVID year, the few years following it gave us that sort of, wow, when given the opportunity, people will come here, right. And they did. And not that more people don't want to come here because they are, but I think that big spike, was for that little era where, hey, remote work is happening. Some people have gone back to not remote work, but it's hard to know what's going to happen the next few years, right? I think just in general, things will sort of average out, right, as they always have. But if you look at history and look at just the big spikes and different economic shifts in history, things average out over time, right? So.
That's right. You're a big average guy. Over time, things happen over time, ups and downs and so on. You're right. But it's like,
I wish I had the crystal ball.
Yeah, I get that, but I think it's a big change in the last 4 years. Like I said, the retirees are going to come here no matter what. They want warmer weather.
Yeah, what are you saying?
Well, I'm seeing that too, but I'm seeing I'm seeing folks coming down here a lot sooner, and they're not really necessarily retirees now. They're still making maybe $200,000 a year or more, and they buy the $1 million home. Where 10 years ago, maybe the retirees were coming down here living off of Social Security and a pension and whatever, and they're done working, and maybe they were buying the $300,000-$400,000 home. So everything's gone up, I think, because the money coming into this market is going up as well.
Yeah, if you could sell a house for much larger of a profit, where you used to live and come here, the reinvestment back into this market from a real estate standpoint, obviously, is also increased, but a lot of those individuals, like you said, are still earning a significant income. So with remote work, I think that changed the dynamic. I have some family that had moved into Florida, working with New York-based companies, right? And making New York-based incomes, and so, but they're here now, right? And whether renting or owning, it's propping up the market, right? Because they're here. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. And depending on how the sort of era of remote work goes, it seems like it's going to stay for a good bit. And I feel like not everybody's going to be back in the office. Even in our industry, I love people in the office, but we're inherently set up like a real estate firm where it's like you can go do your own thing, right? So not everyone's always going to be in the office.
Right.
But you may not move out of state. You might go find a local brokerage to be at if you were in a different state, right? So, but in the tech space where I see, that's changed drastically. People can live really wherever in the tech space. I mean, that has by far been one of the biggest and the largest incomes, and like the more broad masses of people are in that space. And I've seen it in consulting, I've seen it in law, I've seen it in recruiting. So people can live really in a lot of different areas and still make, pretty strong incomes. This area specifically, Sarasota, was always a very hospitality, medical, law, finance. There weren't a lot of big industry here. It wasn't big tech here, right? So, to have this area be opened up now, if you're working in tech, right, is a big deal, right? So that's made a big difference. Plus, with everyone come down here, like you said, we've expanded the sort of middle market, which wasn't really in existence for a while.
Right.
If you go back a decade when,
I would think if you're still working and you were middle income, you maybe moved to Tampa. If you're retiring with a lot of wealth, you moved to Naples. And this was the kind of in between here. And I don't think, we're going to talk about where you came from and so on, but I don't think a lot of people 20 years ago thought of Sarasota would end up as the financial level it's at right now, and the cost of housing, the cost of goods here, and so on. And some of that's inflation, but also it's being driven, I think, by the wealth coming in here, the folks who can afford $1 million home, and then maybe that same home in Naples is $2 million. I don't know. I haven't looked at that market, but I think this market is propped up by money coming from the north and the northeast, which is good for real estate investors and sellers and so on. But it's interesting. So I mean, with whether it's Trump or anybody else, a Democrat, a Republican, these next, I just kind of think that the next 4 years we're all going to have more money in our pockets, which should mean more money we can invest. Because a lot of folks, you talk about lifestyles, and it's a balance between investing a lot of money and with you and living day to day. Mm-hmm. If we get some tax cuts, if we get some lower inflation, we get some more money in our pockets, do you see your business then having more people investing finally?
I think in just the sort of, hey, I have some extra money, I feel like things are going pretty well and I feel a little bit more flexible, that sort of money, yes, we're going to see a little bit extra there, assuming people are being, intentional with their dollars. Part of my job is sort of, no matter what the situation is to like, hey, like we need to get a rein in on what you need to be putting towards certain things you want to put towards money towards, right? Whether it's the new house purchase, it's buying rental properties, it's retiring one day, it's kids' education, it could be, anything, right? It could be buying a business. And figuring out, hey, what are the expenses? What's your sort of like estimated low income availability, and then what's the net free cash flow we can put away, and how much needs to go away towards the goals you want. My hope would be that there would be some additional free cash flow there to put towards goals, while things are good. So that when things maybe aren't as nice, we're still doing something consistently, but maybe not doing the extra. It's like, right. It's like I said earlier, like with working out, it's like, you need to get to the gym even the day you sort of don't feel so good, you're a little sore, it's cloudy outside and you wake up feeling like, I don't want to get out of bed today. You still have to go to the gym those days. You still have to eat right those days, but maybe you don't lift as heavy, maybe do as many reps, maybe you don't stay at the gym as long, but you still go. I'm hoping that maybe the weather's nice, you feel like a spring chicken that day with what's going to happen with the economy. It's again, it's hard to tell like what is going to happen, and it's hard to predict all that. But, if there is some additional free cash flow, that just hopefully frees up dollars to put towards things that people care about. My fear would be that in the past, where there has been a lot of money injected into the economy.
Can you just go back to my fear would be? Or
yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
My fear would be that, when a lot of money was injected into the economy during COVID, and there's a lot of money to be thrown around, a lot of money was also spent very freely and not necessarily for wealth creation, right? It was, let me go buy the new car. Let's move and buy that new house. Maybe it was not quite in the range they should be in. Let's go take that extra vacation with our family. That's going to cost 20 grand, whatever it was, right? All the extra stuff that is like, oh, we have all this free money. And so without someone sitting there and be like, hey, what are you doing? There's a lot of just like irresponsible spending, and it just happens because lifestyle creep happens, right? And so I think that would be my fear, is that if someone's listening to this, I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit more loose in my spending ability. Remember, like, it's not going to stay that way. And often it feels, and I see this all the time, someone has this lifestyle, their business is doing well, making great bonuses or commissions in their job, and it's like, hey, but they're saving maybe 10%, or the rest of it's going towards additional nights out and trips, and they bought a new car. And okay, listen, I'm not saying not to have a nice life and not have nice things. Like, you can tell I enjoy those things myself, but do you understand what your other goals are that maybe not as immediate, and are you balancing that out the right way?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Of course, you have a beautiful car. What's it, a BMW?
Yeah.
I mean, have you had that in the track?
Yeah, I've had that track a few times. One of my hobbies that's not cost effective.
So, I was asking about car purchasing. I don't think that's a win-win there. But I mean, you have to have your some toy.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a balance, and we've had high inflation. I mean, I think you look around this. Besides your top earners or your very wealthy folks who are hopefully investing with you, and I don't know if your balance is, 90% wealthy millionaires investing with Michael Calamaras, or if it's 50-50, 50% of the average day Joe. What's your balance?
Listen, I've always said this, I'm not going to turn down somebody who wants a plan and wants help. I think that's the first thing. You have to want to be helped, and you have to want to have a plan. A lot of people, they don't want the help. They say they want the help, but they don't really want the help. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. And if you went, again, to a coach, or you were playing on a sports team and you need to get better, like, you need to take the advice. And so anybody who wants help, we're going to help them. We have a target. Our goal is to work with, the affluent, the emerging affluent, those that have complex financial situations. So a lot of our clients are, business owners that are doing well and have complex situations, multi-generational families, highly comp executives. But that's not to say we will not work with, emerging, professionals. Work with doctors, work with new doctors, work with, emerging real estate professionals. It's just, if anyone wants a plan, because it's not so much if it's going to happen overnight, they're going to be, wealthy. It takes time to build it, and our job is to help them do that. And we serve really 3 generations of individuals. It's really them, maybe their parents and their kids, or maybe it's them, their kids and their grandkids. And so we know that not every single person in a family is going to be, $1 million earner, right? Some will be just getting started out. Some aren't in a profession that, we have teachers as clients, right? Unfortunately, they do not make a lot of money. They should make a lot more than they do. But they don't, and they need help too. So, we built our team to accommodate that, to accommodate, hey, like, not everyone needs the quote unquote Delta One experience, right? Some people just need a Southwest experience, like really efficient, inexpensive, get you from point A to point Z, and you're happy about it, right? You're not expecting, warm face towels and a caviar, appetizer.
Right. Well, yeah, and risk and reward to that too.
Yeah,
I mean, speaking of that, what I think with the old, from my perspective anyway, the old adage was, you can double your investment in 7 years. Was it? Is that
Rule 72? Yeah, every 7 years, if you're invested, you should double your money.
Invested well too, not obviously in something paying 2% a year, but so you double your money. So you do that over time. That $100, $500 a month becomes what over 30 years, multi-million, right?
Yeah, if you're consistent, right? And that's the goal. So going back to your point earlier about people having a little bit more free cash flow to save, and obviously I get it, if people are just scraping by to pay their bills and
right.
whatnot, it's tough. But for most,
Well, let's talk about that. So how do
Yeah.
you take a person like that? Because I think this is the,
Yeah.
if you could work with somebody like that and said, boy, you're just making by, and actually dug into why are they just barely making it? Is it inflation? Is it their income? Is it both? Have you ever taken those people and saying, you change this, change that, do this, do that.
Yeah.
You can invest 20% over here. I'll make your life. I mean, it's a whole
Yeah.
lifestyle change.
I think it's
Have you worked with
the
those?
hard conversation sometimes, because some people are there because they're maybe irresponsible decisions on the way to that point. Some they just they're ignoring because it's hard to deal with. They don't want to address it. And some they are truly in a situation where it's just tough. They can't figure it out, right? So depending on the situation, what you might do is, one, you have to take stock of literally every expense you have. You have to write it all down, use a very detailed budget worksheet, and get every single thing you possibly can that you spend money on, whether it's fixed expenses, and then like the hard truth of what you are spending money on discretionary too. Like that's the hardest part. It's like, oh, like do I spend $100 a week on this or that, like sushi or, Amazon purchases? Well, what is like the worst case scenario?
Right.
Starbucks, the random odd coffee, like add all that up, and figure that out first and say, what am I making? What's my take home pay? And then figure out like, where am I really in this sort of like, am I in the black? Am I in the red? Like, do I have any free cash flow? And then go through all the discretionary expenses and say, okay, could I be better here first, right? Like, I think it's impossible, but I really am like buying too many Starbucks coffees. Like I could knock this down 25% or even half, or maybe just cut out all completely if they don't care as much about it, right? If it's a necessity in their mind, it's hard, right? It's like,
Right.
It's like breaking an addiction almost. You don't want to like be unhappy in your living, but you have to also balance that against what you care more about. Do I care about where I'm headed or what right now? And then look at all the fixed expenses and work through and say, hey, like have I renegotiated my cable bill recently? Like have I called and done that? Have I called my credit card company and asked if they have any relief on interest rates? Have I even checked to see if I get in a better program there? All the little things that we just sort of let go. We have a ton of subscriptions these days. I mean, you can just like click on something. Yeah, subscribe. You have $3 here. And because it's all of them are so small, you're like, every single one of them isn't really that consequential. But when you add them all up, you're thinking like $50 here, $100 there, $200, maybe $300. I've seen, across like LinkedIn and other cloud subscriptions and everything that you ever, especially in a business, right? You have a ton of subscriptions. So add everything up and say, can I cut things out that I'm really not even using anymore? And I found things that I was paying for, I subscribed to, for like AI tools for things. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh, I used it once, forgot about it. It obviously hasn't helped
And
me.
you get a
or,
monthly
like,
fee now.
just delete it,
Right.
And it's just on your credit card bill. So that's one thing. Can you find a little bit of free cash flow there? Right. And if so, great. And if we're still struggling, then it comes to the point of, all right, is it a career move, right? And is it a base income? Like if you're in a base income sort of a career, like can I go somewhere where I can make a little bit more money? Or maybe the company offers a little bit better benefits to help me with my free cash flow, where I'm not spending as much on the benefits portion, right? If it's in sales, and I came from a sales background in tech, so I work with a lot of sales professionals, tech sales professionals in general, and a lot of business owners in real estate, it's more about the business plan. Because in careers like that, you don't have capped potential for earnings. It's about what business plan can you make. I had a conversation with two people about this in the last few days. Like, you have to know what all those expenses are and what you want them to be to go build your business plan. Arbitrary numbers like, oh, it'd be cool to make, $250,000 this year are fine, but they're arbitrary. They don't actually mean anything. And when you're building your business plan out and, you're going like, how many houses do I have to sell this year? How many clients do I need to talk to this year? Like, what is that tied to, right? So, we go back and say, okay, this is going to take X for my gross, my net number to be X, Y, or Z. My gross number needs to be this. Well, what does that mean from a sales commission? What's my average transaction size? That means I have to do this many transactions this year. That means I've got to talk to this many clients based on the conversions. Now I got a new business plan. I can align that to my net. A lot of initial, I think, sales professionals that are just getting started don't really have that. They just, feels good to make money. And then they're sort of arbitrarily just trying to make more money versus having a real goal.
Plan, right.
And, running a business, it's not always easy. And the days where it gets hard, it's like, again, to be consistent, show up to the gym every day, you have to have a plan. And so that's where it comes in for us to be like, all right, like, what is your business plan to help you create free cash flow? A lot of the business plans that I see are missing the savings.
Right.
It's like, oh, I can afford the house and the car I just bought. I can pay my bills. I can go to sushi dinners. And then they're like, but I don't know why I can't save. Well, your business plan never incorporated saving 20% of your income.
Right. At the top, right?
Yeah. It's like the last thing you thought about.
Pay yourself.
Yeah. It's the last thing you thought about, versus the first. So.
Well, and that's true. And people have to come to you, and it's like, we share one thing in common besides our good
nice
dress.
jacket taste.
Yeah, that's right. And kids in kindergarten and advanced kindergarten class, which I don't know how that happened. That's from my wife, I guess. I'm not taking any credit. But folks have to trust you. They have to trust me. They have to look you in the eye and say, yeah, I trust this guy. He's going to work hard for me. He's got my best interest in mind. They're throwing money at you. They're asking me to sell probably the biggest investment of their life. So how do you earn their trust? You walk in and you meet Michael. How do you earn that and how do you keep it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's extremely important because, people don't really care what you know until they know how much you care. And, they're not going to follow through on the advice. Even if they are willing to sit down with you and listen to you, they're not going to follow through on the advice, which could be life-changing unless they trust you, right? So I think that's hyper important. There's a few things. One, it's following through on things you say you're going to do for them and showing that you care by showing up, spending time with them, really investing, effort into them. Just like if you went, I like using the gym analogy because it's easy.
And you go there every day.
Right. And I try, not every day anymore. I try, but it's tough. But, if someone's like, coach, I don't feel like lifting this weight today. And they're like, all right, don't do it. And just let them get away with it. That's not helping them, right? And so you have to be convicted in what you believe in and philosophically care more about them than the discomfort of letting that person get away with something. So I never let people get away with things when they tell me excuses like, well, it's just tough right now. I can't really save as much. I'm like, no, that's not the reality. It feels hard to do it. And so you don't want to face the reality. And I'm going to tell them how it is. And people respect that more. Now, they may or may not do it, but I'm not going to let them get away with it. And because it's not in their best interest to do that. And I would expect someone who's coaching me to tell me the hard truth. That's why I have them. Either I'm paying for that service or something, right? I'm giving them my time. So that's number one. Number two, I think it is important, and I think it does help that, we're tied to a really established firm. Our firm is, 166 years old. It's been around for a long time. We have very stringent compliance about everything we do. It's not just sort of me in sort of the ether floating around, and
it's a Northwestern Mutual way.
Yeah, there's a process there, and so being tied to an organization that has those guardrails, because I want to be able to believe that whatever else is happening that I'm maybe not seeing is also being done right, and backed by a company that stands behind their word. So that's number two. And also, I work with a lot of people, and most people we work with are friends. Most people that we work with come through somewhere. Referrals. Our clients refer us. Our friends refer us. Off the internet, I get, people tag us and things because they've worked with us. And, people, and I appreciate this because we don't really ask for it. It's that they promote us. They advocate for us. They're not usually just a strict, hey, work with Michael. It's usually, he helped me do X, Y, or Z. Our firm did something for them and it made an impact. And so they remember that. And that's what I meant about being there for them and being all invested, because people will remember how you made them feel when you showed up. And they're going to translate that without even thinking about it to somebody else they meet, at the dinner table, maybe at this Thanksgiving, right? They're sitting there and they're talking about maybe you. They're like, oh, Kendall just made us feel so like safe and secure in our decision making process, right?
Right.
They're going to remember that without even like meaning to refer you, and so I think that is important, and obviously meeting it and being authentically there. I talked to somebody about this the other day about, where can they go to meet potential clients? Like what should they do for networking? And I'm like, you should be doing things you care about because you'll be there authentically versus just being there to like make a deal, right? Like, what do you care about nonprofit wise? You have any, like the gym? Like, I just like being at the gym, so I'm just going to hang out there and I'll meet people through doing that. I'm not going to show up to a random, organization for no reason just because I want to make a sale, right? That's just not the way you do it. If you care about the Humane Society or, I do a lot of stuff with children. We do pediatric cancer fundraising. We do fundraising for 40 Carrots Family Center, has to do with children. I care a lot about doing things that are children based, and so we're there a lot, and people just appreciate that, and we appreciate they help promote us because we're there for the right reasons, know, and we appreciate their support.
You're not just throwing money to be a sponsor. You're there because you want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's, my role at Tatum now has grown substantially too. And I think that's, I love that program there and the families that are there. And the, I don't know if you've seen some of the podcasts, but I had Barry on, and we talked about how he choreographs that whole event from 7 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. It's a well-run school, and I've invested there my time because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And now I have 2 kids here, and I'll have a 3rd one soon. And like you said, if you're there organically, if you want to be there, you're going to meet people. You're going to grow. And then hopefully word of mouth comes along and so on.
Yeah.
And Northwestern Mutual is a premier company. So you've got that brand on top of you doing a great job that kind of backs you up, much like I have Preferred Shore.
Sure.
Another beautiful boutique.
Well-respected.
Yeah, well-respected real estate. Milligan is well respected here, so that helps. So let's take a step back then, just a few minutes now. So where were you born and raised, and tell me about your childhood?
Yeah,
what got you to this point?
Oh man, well, born in New York. It was Mid-Hudson Valley area, the Catskills, so to speak. So was there really young. Don't really remember it too much. My aunt and uncle lived there, so I was there back a bit after later in life. And then Long Island for a little bit. My dad was born there. He had a business. My mom was born in Brooklyn.
What kind of business did he have?
He's in a few things. He was in tire business, tire retailing.
Gosh.
He started off really young in that, and we found early success and just a hard worker. Worked at a young age. And then he was in the newspaper business after that for a little while.
Writing or delivering?
He owned like a coupon clipper.
Oh,
although I think he may have had a newspaper out as a kid.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Who hasn't? Did you have one of those when you were a kid?
I didn't, just because we were in New York. I didn't really have that, and then down here it just wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, it's not anymore. It's kind of gone.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? It's all gone digital. So, and then we moved upstate near Albany for a while. I had my most of my memories as a kid were up there, and one of the things I remembered that I appreciate now being where I'm at in Sarasota was as a kid, the neighborhood, which I did not see in Sarasota when we first moved here. So when I first moved from...
But how old were you when you moved here?
To here, I think I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
Yeah, so... When we moved from Long Island, and there were kids there in my neighborhood to Albany, I remember we moved in, first day, moving trucks up there. A bunch of kids are out playing down the street. They all came over like, hey, we're all playing volleyball. You want to come play? And that's how our neighborhood was up there. There were just kids everywhere. We rode bikes everywhere on the streets. It was not a gated community. It was just a normal suburb. And I grew up just, go out in the morning. My mom yells out the front door, echoing across down the streets of the neighborhood, like come home, right? Before it's too dark. That's how it was, right? Come home when the street lights come on.
Right.
And, that's how I grew up in that environment. Coming down here in middle school into Palmer Ranch, it was fairly sleepy then, because like you said earlier, it has changed a lot. It was more of a retirement community, but a great place to live. And so to know anybody, you had to be like, hey, have your kids come over from other neighborhoods to come, play and all that.
More car dependent.
Yeah, more car dependent. I ride my bike around my neighborhood in Palmer Ranch, and there was no one. No one's outside. It's also really hot, right? It's a lot different, a little hot in Florida, so no one's really outside, just hanging out.
When I looked down here many years ago during the summer, And I saw all these swing sets in backyards and no kids on them.
No auto.
And I could never figure out why until I moved down here. I said, well, you're not sitting on that hot swing.
I think it also has changed a bit. I don't know that there was the plethora of sort of like middle-aged families,
Right.
you know, as there are now. Those swing sets may have been like grandparents' houses or something, right?
Right.
But now in the neighborhood I'm at, there's kids everywhere, you know, and it's a little bit different. I think it has transformed a good bit over the last, oh my God, like 20 years I've been here, right? So 20 plus years I've been here, almost 24 years, yeah. So, you know, that has changed a bit. But yeah, so up in New York, I went to public school up there, came down here, and then, you know, did my high school years at ODA, Outdoor Academy, private school. Big shift from being in a public school in New York. Education system was a little bit different, and so my family was like, hey, you know, you can go to ODA. So I went there. Really small school, really small graduating class, but it was good. It was a good, you know, it was a good network, and I did some sports, and then I went down to Miami for my college career, and I thought I'd stay there actually after I graduated, but the recession did not allow that to happen. I went down to UM for engineering and architectural engineering. So I had 2 bachelors there, and sort of midway through my career in college, and this is sort of, I think all students going into college should maybe do some additional soul searching. And I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I thought I did, but I actually found out I didn't. Halfway through a college career for 2 engineering degrees, I'm like, wow, I really dislike all of this. You know, to my parents' chagrin, because it was a very expensive, you know, private school to go to. But I graduated with those 2 degrees and my business minor. But the recession in '08, you know, really destroyed the job market for civil engineers and architectural engineers. I mean, there was no building going on. If you weren't in like mechanical engineering or industrial where things were still happening, there was just no jobs. Especially if you were not like the highest of the highest caliber student.
Been in the industry for a while. Correct.
Yeah, and I had done internships through high school in engineering. I did internships through college until those dried up in the recession. Then I was working as a graduate student assistant doing, you know, experimental tests in the school there. So I always worked. But even with that, they were like, hey, there's no jobs. And I don't know, it's like a 3.5 student. It wasn't like a, you know, 4.0 or Magna or Summa or anything like that. But they weren't taking anybody. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to figure something else out. And that's how I got into financial services. I came back home here to Sarasota, where I was like, I'm not ever coming back here. I want to be in Miami or New York City, where it's like young. Yep. And I'm like, I guess I'm going back to Sarasota with my family and find a job in the financial services here, you know, because they were hiring at that point, literally anybody that could fog a mirror. To just walk in and say, yeah, sure, like pass your test and sign the contract and you're in, you know, they didn't care.
Anybody who could fog a mirror. And that's hard to do in Sarasota. But
yeah, they're like, hey, just come on in. And that was, again, post-recession, or like, hey, just like bring in as many people as possible into financial services, because we need people to like get our industry back, you know,
right.
after the market crash. And I can't say I did great there. I learned a lot. But I did figure out that working with people and on the business side of things was where I wanted to be, and not in engineering. And that's when I got pulled over into
which you probably could have done without any degree.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is now, like, there's probably for me, I think there's a network establishment that helped me establish. Like, I have a lot of clients that I work with now that are Miami grads. You know, that
you partied with back then, maybe?
Yeah, that I do people like, yeah.
Was it a party school back then in the day?
I think, I mean, it was a good mixture. Yeah. We had a, you know, very intense engineering school, a lot of friends in engineering, you know, but again, there's a business school there. It is Miami. I mean, there's something to do literally every day of the week.
Right.
You know, you could go out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and there will be something to do, you know, so it is easy for that side of things. But yeah, like, I have a bunch of people that I graduated with that are my clients now. So I think from a networking standpoint, obviously helpful. But sure, like jumping into financial services, it's just a business, and you can learn, and we teach all of it to people who have no experience now, you know, because it's all learnable. You know, just like anything else, like you can learn real estate. You need to be sort of like innately resilient and like have grit and like a passion for building something if you're going to work in a hard industry like ours, right? But you can learn how to do transactions and
Sure, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
I think the hard part is getting that trust and showing up every day, because our days it's not good. But it's interesting. So you moved here. You had to meet your wife someplace.
Yeah. So when I came back from, talking about things that, networking, right? So I come back from college, get pulled into financial services, and I start doing all my tests, and I start networking. I'm like, all right, I have to find clients. There's like, go out and find clients. So I start networking, different things. I did the Van Wezel. I was doing the Chamber of Commerce, Young Professionals Board.
What did you do at Van Wezel? I love that place. What did you do there?
So they have the Van Wezel Performing Arts Center, and they have the Van Wezel Foundation. And I would go to the foundation. They have their annual gala, which is their fundraiser, because they promote programs for children and arts and culture for the community, and they have free programs. So I known about the Van Wezel, and I liked it, and like what they
was it around 20 years ago when you were here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been around for a long time.
Okay.
I don't know exactly when but it was around because when I was in school here, we went to the Van Wezel for field trips. Okay. Yeah. So I was familiar with it because of that, and I knew they did those programs. So I was volunteering there. I was volunteering everywhere. Like anyone would say, hey, we have a thing, like go volunteer. I'm like, yes. Like to my point earlier, it's like, was I there authentically for everything? Not really, because I was just trying to be out there as much as possible. Hey, there's this 23-year-old, 24-year-old kid just like showing up, trying to like get business, right? With my business card,
Right.
But I did care about the organizations. I did, but like I couldn't give my all to everything. That was a lesson learned. But I met my wife at the Van Wezel. Her father was on the board there. Her mother was helping with the gala. She helped with the gala every year. She was one of the co-chairs. And she showed up to like one meeting because I think they asked her to, and that's when we met. So we met there. I would say volunteering.
Theatrical meeting. Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So we met there. It's forever ago now.
And then the rest is history. Now, how many kids later?
3 kids now. Yeah.
You have about the same age as mine, right?
Yeah. So I have a 6-year-old and then a 3-year-old, and my son is going to be 2 this week.
2. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So it's busy.
So you're going to be at Tatum Ridge for a long time.
For a while.
Just like
yeah. They'll be there for a while.
Wow. Well, so you met here, you started this business, and that was how long ago? How many years ago?
When I came back here,
yeah.
So I finished a 5-year program in Miami. That would have been 2011.
Okay.
I was back here.
And it took off since then.
Yeah. So I was in financial services for 4 years, but then I wasn't really sure that's what I was supposed to be doing. I learned a lot, got my licenses. I went from there to property and casualty to check that out. And then from there, I shifted over. I was recruited to a tech company that had, went public, and they were scaling, and they had a pretty significantly sized office they acquired in Lakewood Ranch. And I was helping, I joined to help them build an inside sales team. I was a salesperson. I was really just a sales development rep, because although I knew how to talk to people, I didn't really have a good sales training. I thought I was going to be an engineer, and there wasn't a lot of training in my initial career in financial services, because it was like, hey, come into this firm, sign a contract, you can fog a mirror, figure it out, so to speak. They had some training, but it wasn't really that good. And that's again why I think where I'm at now is better, because we actually train people on how to build a business. But I had a good sales training where I went next, and we scaled the sales team from about 10 people to 140 in 4.5 years. So I learned a lot, because I wasn't like the head of all that, but I got leadership opportunities. I did well financially. I was the number 1 person in sales there a number of years, because I learned how to translate my knack for people into a sales process, and how to talk to people and understand their needs and help them come to the right conclusions for themselves. And then I was put in charge of sales teams, and that was a totally different animal, and I sucked at that, and I had to get better at that, being sort of like a business owner in the organization for my team. But then, it's corporate, and, corporate is tough, especially I think it's tough. You have to either love that or not love that. And I love the camaraderie of everybody, and I love that we got to build something, but I didn't love, there was not a lot of fulfillment in what we were doing, and a lot of changes, and those changes weren't for the better of most people. So, as corporations tend to do, they just have to shift around a lot. So when I looked for a new career after that, I really didn't even think about coming back into financial services specifically, because I I'd say enjoy those first few years before I got into that sales career. I enjoyed the fact that I did well and was building something unique and having fun in the sales career. I liked the concept of financial services, but I was like, I don't know, like that was a bad experience. So what can I do something else where I could combine the two? And I thought I might go to big tech for a while, like enterprise technology sales. I was given an offer to go work in private equity, just wasn't here locally. And I had started a family by that point, so moving was tough. And then there was an opportunity I got offered to go work for a middle market mergers and acquisitions firm. But similar to my initial financial services career, zero direction, zero business plans. They're like, just figure it out. I'm like, I'm not looking for that. I don't want to start all over again. And so that's when the opportunity came to start a firm at Northwestern, and someone introduced me, and I wasn't really looking for it. But I like the model, like the business planning aspect of it. I like that I can do my own thing, but also there's some structure,
have resources,
some support.
Right. Yep.
So there's good people who care, involved, and so. But I wanted to just sort of do my own thing and work with people, because that's where the fulfillment came in, like seeing people get somewhere they want to go and be part of their lives. I love business. I just didn't know what business I wanted to be in, but now I can talk to people that are in all walks of business and life, and I can, feel like I'm part of it.
So the biggest joy you get out of what you're doing now is seeing them reach their goals, seeing them exceed it, seeing folks flourish. Yeah. That maybe without you would not have.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if they're just a little bit better off because we spent some time with them, that just feels good, and a lot of times I think, and I was telling some of the junior people at our firm earlier this morning, unfortunately, you don't really immediately feel a lot of the effects of the effort you put in, whether it's calling someone 900 times to follow up because they never got back on the calendar, like finish the planning you started. But because they do get back to you eventually, down the road, there might be some serious impact because of that. Whether it's like, hey, you saved a few hundred bucks extra a month and you're not like a decade off of your goal for retirement, or you did the insurance work you're supposed to do. And so, when someone dies or gets hurt, like they're not destitute, right? And I've been around long enough in this business and long enough in life to see the bad things that can happen to people. And so it does remind me that because we're there and we're pushing, not everyone's going to appreciate it, but the ones who do, unfortunately, are probably the ones that have had something bad happen. And we were there because, we kept pushing. So, hopefully it's the good side of things, and they can say, hey, we bought that house because you helped us put the money where it needed to go, or, we were able to, give our kids or grandkids what we wanted them to have because we did the planning right. And, so I think all that stuff is a little bit delayed gratification in some degrees, in most cases. Unfortunately, some of my experiences in this career have been in the last 5 years and pretty immediate, where we've done some work for somebody and then, they develop cancer and, without sort of like resituating their life, they may have been worse off. And so they were very, very thankful for that work. But for sure, I feel like, we're a bit emotionally invested in seeing their success,
right? And how do you feel that's amazing, because you have to get some gratitude out of what you're doing, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. You can make $1 million a year, but you could be just empty inside with emotion because there's nothing there. So that's good. How does real estate fit into somebody's portfolio? Do you still think it's a great investment? Of course, it depends, I guess, where locally. But is that still a great investment as it was years ago?
So I can't really speak on the quality of the investments just because I'm not really qualified to do so. But just like anything, like I can't, in any investment, it could be good or bad. I think we have clients that do invest in real estate, and it's not our job. And we hear this a lot, from realtors we work with. They're like, every time my client goes to their financial advisor to talk about some investment property or rental property or whatever it is, we always hear, oh, don't do that. Just keep your money in the market. And I always laugh because of course they're going to say that. I mean, it's the same for us. If money leaves the investment portfolio to go somewhere else, like that's money we're not earning a fee on, right? So I get it. But as a planner, as a fiduciary, we have to be putting our clients' best interests first. And if they want to do that, again, going back to their goals, like what do you want to do? Do you want to own a bunch of investment properties? It's not my place to tell you if that real estate investment is a good or bad investment. I can't know that. Hopefully a real estate professional that you've hired,
help you
like your realtor, right? Will help you understand that and understand the market. That's their role. My job is to say, you want to do that. Are you financially prepared to do it in a way that is safe and efficient? Does it make sense to roll money out of some other property or investment? Does it make sense to use a loan? Does it make sense to save money and use cash? Like, what are you doing and how can you do it? And if you make that investment, are you still financially secure? And that's our job, right? Is to help people do the things that they want to do
safely
because they want to do it. Yeah.
Right. Well, but along those lines, I mean, I understand investment properties, rentals, and so on. Is that good or bad? I mean, you have to have some. One thing you have to think about is, do you have the cash sitting there to pay the mortgage in case you don't have a renter for a couple of months or a year, whatever? That's tricky. But how about renting versus buying? There have been thoughts about that it's almost better just to rent than to buy. From a realtor's perspective and from my own perspective, I still think there's a lot of value in home ownership and the value that creates and the tax write-off you get with that and so on. But there are folks now saying it might be better to rent.
Yeah.
Invest the money in the market.
Sure.
If my home was worth $400,000 4 years ago and now it's worth $800,000, I could easily say I just doubled my money in 4 years instead of 7.
Right.
But it's not going to keep going up.
Yeah.
It's not going to hit 1.6 million here in 4 more years, where the market will keep doubling in 7 years or whatever the number is. So it's almost, in my mind, it might be better to have as much money as you can in the market. Yeah,
I think it depends, right? I think, again, nuance based on the family, like what are the needs, right? Do you need a place and it's going to be too expensive to rent? And, the free cash flow from that just won't be as significant as if you want to own something where you could like lock in your expenses, right? For a long period of time.
Right.
I think there's a back and forth on that. That is a conversation to have though, right? So the recommendation there would be have a conversation with their financial professional and really understand the situation, what they're looking for,
the pros and the cons, and
in the area they're at. If you run a model, based on renting versus buying, like which one looks better for what they want. Because I do know some younger people that I work with that are like, hey, listen, I don't want to own a home right now. I would like to rent one. I would like to purchase a property, but it's not for my primary residence. It's to rent them all out. Or they're going to buy a quad or a duplex and live in one and rent the others. It's not so much about, hey, I had this like cool house I'm living in versus I'm using it as a wealth creation tool.
Right.
Whereas others are like, hey, I want to have kids and a family. I want them to be in a home, and that's what I want. And so, my job is to make sure whatever they want and need comes to fruition. If it's not financially feasible to do it, it's my also job to tell them that they shouldn't do it, right? Where we really want to buy this house, and I'm like, you're not in a place to put down enough into a down payment to get an ongoing payment that's going to be, doable,
right?
Plus maintain an emergency fund, or buy a rental property. And to your point, hey, you don't have a renter immediately, or you lose a renter one day, or your air conditioning system goes and you got to replace it for $10K, or, there's a roof hole and now you got to put,
20 years later,
2% deductible into the hurricane, for your insurance. Like, can you afford all that? If you can, great. And also, like, do you really, and again, the best people that are going to, do real estate are the ones that like really want to do real estate versus like the idea of it, which is, oh, passive income sounds cool to me. Everyone says that, but passive income comes from a lot of places. Do you really want to do real estate? Do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to own property and do all that? Cool. Then now let's plan for that.
And get that call at midnight when something goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is interesting. So it sounds to me like, first of all, your job is to corral these ideas and these people and say, okay, let's talk.
Yeah.
First of all, and like I always say, that's why I have conversations with Kendall here. I mean, I want to talk to my buyers and sellers. I want to talk to you because same thing. I want to buy a house in Sarasota. Okay. Well, wow. That's a broad statement. Now let's corral that down into, do you have a family? Or do you care about schools? Or what, do you want to live downtown? I mean, if you're coming from New York, but you like the city atmosphere, maybe this is awesome down here. Maybe you have kids and you want the best school. What are some of the better schools? You want a neighborhood you can ride your bike in. Maybe you don't care about that. You just want a pickleball court next to you.
Sure.
So to talk to these people and corral them into a little bit about what's going on in their life, what they want for the future. And same thing with you. I mean, they've got these wild ideas. They want to invest a lot of money, or they can't invest anything. I want to get some life insurance. Maybe they're coming to you and you've got to corral them, put all these ideas into something that's meaningful and can be a plan that can be carried out for long term. It sounds like about the same.
Yeah, right. I mean, everyone wants to buy a piece of real estate or own a property, and to your point too, when you can have a conversation with them and really build a roadmap to making that happen. People say a lot of things, right? But are they actually going to do it?
Right.
Like, oh, I've been looking to lose weight, or whatever. Are they actually going to do it? If they really care about it, if you can sort of sit down with them, like in your side of the house, and be like, all right, like let's talk about this. Here's realistically what the house is going to be for what you want.
Right.
Here's the range we're in. Right.
Right.
Is this affordable?
Right.
And then level set the expectations. Say, okay, cool. Now, can you do it? Can we plan for it? If it's not doable, are we looking at something different, right? Or going to the other side of the house where maybe it's you're renting and not buying, right? So,
or finding out why they're selling. They want to sell their house. Well, why do you want to sell it? What's your plan? Where are you going to go to? What's next? Are you going to be happy with that? There's so many dynamics in all of this, but great. So trust. The number one word out of this is trust. If they don't trust you or me, or you've got nothing.
Doesn't matter what you say.
Talk real quick. We got a few more minutes here. Talk about your podcast. You're also doing a podcast. What's that called? What's that all about?
Sure. Yeah, it's called Leaders and Legends. I started it because I talk to a lot of unique people on a regular basis, and those are all usually closed door conversations. With my business, but I love sharing people's stories. I think people have a lot of unique things to say and share, and everyone's journey, they've learned something. They've overcome challenges. They have unique successes, and they're doing something fun. And so I wanted to do something where I could highlight that and just meet more people on a basis that is sort of nothing to do with my business, or my business versus just building relationships. So, and I wanted to learn from these people as well, right? There's things that you can pick up from what they're doing. And so we talk about, their journey, how they got to where they are, and their unique either business venture or where they are in leadership, and really whatever it is. We'll highlight business owners, we'll highlight executives, leaders of nonprofits, athletes, physicians, doesn't really matter. Just somebody who has some sort of leadership qualities that they've demonstrated, that they've done something unique. So I want to highlight, hey, like it's not like you're successful now, but it wasn't always like that.
Right.
Like you too have gone through challenges. What are those? So people listening to it can say, oh, you know what? This isn't the end of the road for me. Like there's more to it. Everyone's gone through the challenges, and just hear unique iterations and share, tips, for people who may be just getting out of college and getting started, or younger professionals, or people just starting over in life,
right?
That want just to hear a unique perspective or fresh angle on something. And that's really what it is. It's just meant to share their stories and allow me to have a conversation, sort of selfishly for me, to have a conversation with somebody that maybe I wouldn't have been able to chat with.
Right.
So yeah, it's been fun.
And that's how I feel too. I mean, when I'm talking to you or anybody else on this show, I mean, we pass each other in school and say hi, but selfishly, I like to sit down with you and have a cup of coffee and talk to you and say, what's Michael Calamaras all about? And this is,
I appreciate it.
Any of these folks, it's great to learn. It is a journey, and you find out you weren't just fed a silver spoon. You had to go to college and work your way up. And a lot of these folks I've talked to, it's interesting because they've either were born and raised here or moved here at a very early age.
Yeah.
I have yet to talk to anybody who moved here yesterday.
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. I'm the newbie here. I've been in Sarasota 4 years. But I came from Daytona Beach across the panhandle, that peninsula here. But interesting. I think what we're taking out of this to wrap up here is that organically you grow it, you talk to people, you show up, you care. They can trust you. You care about what they're doing, and they care about what you're doing, and you've got a great relationship, and that builds your product, and that builds my product. And I think that's great. It's great to know that you can't just buy these people. You have to get them in there. So I'll finish up by saying again, it's Michael Calamaras, Northwestern Mutual. Reach out, talk to this guy. If you need his number, call me. 847-980-8987 is my phone number. Again, I'm Kendall Lutz. real estate agent here at Preferred Shore, and this is a great conversation again. Thank you for
Appreciate
being
having
here.
me. Yeah, thanks so much.
You bet.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.